Hi everyone. Today I was going to show you how you can relieve tension and soreness in muscles using techniques called myofascial release. But I thought I would start off by explaining what fascia is, and then I'll do a separate video or a series of videos for you. So fascia is an enormous piece of connective tissue. It kind of looks like a thick spider's web. It covers and penetrates and attaches to every muscle, internal organ, vein, artery, and nerve in your body. It's one continuous, uninterrupted piece, which is important to know because that affects how we look at the body and understand how it works. Despite its prominence and importance, modern medicine knows relatively little about fascia, certainly not enough about how to diagnose it and treat it. It's very highly innervated, so if you do have restrictions in your fascia, you'll feel it, but your medical practitioner might not know that it's there. Restrictions and injuries don't come up on things like x-rays and CAT scans and so on. I'm going to read a very short passage from this book by Andrew Taylor Still, who is the founder of osteopathy, or was the founder of osteopathy. This book is about 120 years old, so the language is a bit dated. This is how he talks about fascia. The fascia is universal in man and equal in self to all other parts, and stands before the world today the greatest problem, the most pleasing thought. It carries to the mind of the philosopher the evidence absolute that it is the material man and the dwelling place of his spiritual being. It is the house of God, the dwelling place of the infinite, so far as man is concerned. So he was well into fascia. And he also believed that it is the birthplace of all diseases. And it's not difficult to see his point. So, what does this mean and why should you care? I've already said that this knowledge affects how we look at the body and how we understand how it works. I'm going to make this relevant to your muscles, but know that this is true for your entire body and every system within it. We've already established that muscles are connected by fascia. Traditionally, we look at muscles as separate entities, so like the biceps and the traps and so on. Anatomists cut and dissected muscles that way in order for us to better understand them. But nowadays, it's quite common for anatomists to talk about these individual muscles as part of very clear fascial lines that they're part of. There are lots of different fascial lines, but I'm going to give you one as an example. This is the superficial back line. I hope that you can see this clearly enough. You can see how the muscles are connected very clearly from your head to your toe in this, to your toes in this particular fascial line. So what this means is if there's a restriction in your neck, you might feel it in your low back. If there's a restriction in your foot, you might feel it in your calf, and so on and so forth. So that's why when you go and see a physical therapist, you might be surprised to see them working on around the bottom of your ribs on your left side when the pain is in your right shoulder, or if you come to see me with low back pain, I might look at what's happening in the glutes as well, or look at what's happening in your hip flexors, and so on. It's quite complicated, and there are no rules, but there are common patterns to look for. And of course, if there's a restriction in your fascia in a particular place, you might feel it in that exact spot. So, the next thing I'd like to talk about is the property of fascia, what it's like, which is also very important to know. So, I don't know if you ever did this at school, or maybe you're familiar with this from something else. If you mix corn flour and water, you get this goop, that acts like a liquid if you stir it nice and slowly. It's like a liquid. But if you stir it more vigorously or you tap it with your fingers, it becomes the particles jam together and it can act like a solid. So that's a lot like fascia, which is important to know because if massage therapists or people at home on foam rollers and things like that are working very quickly and with lots of sudden depth and so on, it might not be as effective as it could be. Ida Rolf, who was a biochemist and a physical therapist as well, she said that you should have two speeds at which you work at, slow and slower. So that's about us done with explaining what the fascia is. I do want to give one other demonstration which I find quite interesting. It might not be super relevant, but it is interesting. I'm going to show you, if I tap my finger on this piece of wood, that's using the tension in my muscles. If I pull the finger back and let go, that's using the elastic recoil of the fascia. Now if I do both, if I am using the elastic recoil of the fascia as well as the muscle tension, you can hear how that creates a lot more force. And that is sort of a demonstration of how important the link between the fascia and the muscles is when moving optimally. That's an aside. I just thought that was quite interesting anyway. That's about me done, I think. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch. The next video or series of videos, I haven't quite decided yet what I'm going to do, but the next video certainly is going to be on myofascial release. Myo just means muscle, by the way. I think it's Greek origin, or it might be Latin. But anyway, it's the name, myofascia is the name given to the fascia in your muscles. It would be useful if you could get yourself a ball, either a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball like this. This was about £3 or £4 on eBay. They're very cheap, and it would be useful if you could get a hold of one or a tennis ball for my next video. And I'll see you soon.